On Monday, May 22nd, I'll say congratulations, you're done. It's not Monday, May 22nd. So
Wait, this coming Monday?
you're not done. Only every day.
So what are we going to do?
We're going to finish that statement.
4 days.
And we're going to run through this and certainly answer all your questions. This is basically your final exam of what we're doing for rest of the year. You see down at the bottom your due date is May the 21st, and some of you are having minor conniptions in your mind because you're like, I'm not even going to be here. I'm going to be in Ohio or possibly on the way home from Ohio or somewhere around there. Final copy, you're going to turn it in for Sunday, May 21st. All right. So that is right before that last Monday for week of school. Honestly, I think most of you are going to be 85-90% of the way done before that, because I have a separate sheet that you might get today or I'll pass out tomorrow, depending where we're at the end of the period, where you're going to have a rough draft submitted to me by Thursday, the 18th. So the hope would be, and that would be like for in class on Thursday the 18th. So the hope would be that by Thursday the 18th, you have most of the heavy stuff taken care of. You have your books, you have your arguments, you have your examples and all those kinds of things, and it's just kind of polishing it off in order to submit it. Starting tomorrow, although I don't think you're really going to be using them tomorrow, starting tomorrow you have laptops in here the rest of the time being through next Friday, the 19th. So let's say you're not going to be here over the weekend, you're going to be more in the Cuyahoga County area as opposed to Allegheny County area. You come into school Thursday, rough draft is complete, or you come into class, rough draft is complete. That still gives you Thursday, Friday in class to kind of finish up and take care of what you need to. You're not giving me a paper copy of your rough draft, and I'll show this to you tomorrow and on Monday. You're actually doing your rough draft through Google Classroom. So it's going to be like a digital copy like how you normally would, but it's essentially just kind of shared with me and you submit it for credit. So we can take a look at your rough draft on Thursday and Friday if needed. It's in front of you on the screen. I have it on my screen, and we can just run through. I don't need you to peer edit other people. You got your own stuff that you need to worry about. Megan does not have to worry about peer editing someone else's paper, but she's worried about writing her own paper. So that's not the thing. Your last semester grade then for this class will be that rough draft. And I have the rubric. I'll show it to you. It's 40 points. You're writing the essay, so you get an essay grade for it. You should know going into you submitting it that I earned all 40 points, or I have 38 out of the 40 points, or 10 out of the 40 points. So, if your grade's 79, 89, this would be something that can get you over that edge. If your grade is 80, 90, this is something that can drop you down if you don't do it. So there's certainly still some stuff you want to take care of. But your final exam as a whole is worth, and I know it's somewhat of literally it's an odd number, 153 points. That point value is coming from because you have 53 of those points from that midterm that we did back in January. So your essay really is going to be worth 100 points, which is essentially 65%, 2/3 of your grade. In Power School, you still have the midterm grade that you did. I posted it on there. It's not counting towards your grade for the semester, but you can see your score. I also have it in a spreadsheet where I can literally come around to you. I'll start doing this on Monday. This is what you got on your midterm. You get an 85 on your essay. This would be your final exam grade. You get a 95 on your essay. This would be your final exam grade. You choose not to do your essay. This would be your final exam grade, and you can know all of those things. You never know. So the point value too of the final exam really doesn't mean anything because either way it makes up 10%. So I could make your final exam grade worth 5 points or 500 points. It still has the same value weight, so to speak, when it does come to that final exam. So a week from today, rough draft, and then Sunday night, turn it in. Okay. So essentially what you're doing is you're going to take any two books that we've read over the course of the year. You can start with the summer reading book with The Grapes of Wrath. You can go to the most recent book that we did, Slaughterhouse 5. You can choose independent reading novels throughout the course of the year, but you're going to pick two books that we've read and you're going to do a compare-contrast essay. The structure of the essay is going to take care of most of the work for you, and I'll show you that structure coming up. But basically, you pick 2 books. I would try to pick 2 books that you like the most, or dislike the least, that you're going to be more willing to work with, and then you're going to find some overall issue, argument, topic that's getting addressed in the book, an area of concern, and explain how the authors do it in similar and some contrasting ways of addressing that issue, that idea. I gave you down here keyword possible themes that you could take a look at. You can use them, but you're under no obligation to use them whatsoever. They're strictly examples. So I gave you 8 options down here that you can look at. You can certainly use other arguments besides these ones, nor do you have to use the books that I assigned to them. I just wanted to give each book an opportunity to be on the list. If you do something about survival, the struggle to survive or the sacrifice to survive, you can certainly use other books as well in here. Some of you read The Jungle. There's a lot of survival mode going on within that book, even though it's not on the list. So these are just ideas, but you certainly have more flexibility. Meredith, did you have a question?
I was just going to say that. I was like, should the jungle be
Yeah, I mean, you honestly could probably find a way to fit most of the books on all of the lists. Basically, every book is on the list for social and political segregation, so there you go. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility. You're not limited to the topics, you're not limited to the books under those topics. I can't really think of a time that a person said, I want to do this book and this book, but we can't think of some kind of argument. We've pretty much come up with something that should be used probably for all the books. And again, I don't care which ones you use. Honestly, whether or not you agree with this idea or not, I don't know. I think the 2 easiest books to do are Invisible Man and The Grapes of Wrath, simply because they're lengthy and there's a lot of stuff going on in them that you can pull some strong parallels with. But, you pick the 2 that are going to work best for you. You want to do Siddhartha and Slaughterhouse 5? Fine. You want to do The Awakening and Catcher in the Rye? Perfectly fine. You want to do Cuckoo's Nest and The Great Gatsby? Go for it. You pick whatever 2 you want to go with. So I know you might have questions about, well, how am I setting this up? But at least any questions about, generally speaking, what you're doing. Don't let the 5 to 7 pages, 8 paragraph thing scare you off. I'll show you how you're going to get to the 8 paragraphs. Please do.
My mom keeps buying and making cakes. My brother had hip surgery and she said that feels sad for him. So every day I would get home and she's like, there's another cake. And I'm like, okay.
Hey, I had Brewster's for lunch yesterday, so.
Oh, how was it? Did you have your cake with it too?
No, I didn't. I still have the leftover cake. And I still have a little bit of Brewster's. So I'll have those with my buffalo chicken pizza. I'll be good to go. Alright, any questions? Flip your paper over.
Oh no.
We are going to draw a tree. We're going to do some tree drawing.
You have any green crayons?
The silent and the flow. The silent and the flow? Yeah.
What you're going to do, if you are feeling low confidence with your tree drawing abilities, all you got to do, middle paper, 2 parallel lines. Ooh, that's really like ugly. That's highlighter parallel lines. I don't want that. There we go. 2 fairly parallel lines. They don't have to be exact. Middle of the paper. Don't overanalyze it, Greta. Just 2 parallel lines.
I'm trying to make it center.
This is your tree trunk, so tree trunk appropriate. Then connect your tree trunk just by doing little zigzag. Get your inner Bob Ross, happy little tree. Got some roots.
Wait,
Feels
hold
good.
on. I need some time to
You can do it, Hannah.
This is working.
It looks more like part of the
Xylem transport.
You can do it.
What is xylem transport? Where's the cosmerians?
Now, once you have your roots, do a little half circle somewhere on the tree, on the edge, and color it in because the squirrel needs a home.
Who's a squirrel? This is a metaphor. Or no, it's a symbol.
Don't be like the person in 4th period. Do I really have to do this? Yes, you do.
What if
Tell all your 10th grade friends what you do in AP. We draw trees.
I never laid on the part of the
And then give yourself some squiggly lines.
Where? Oh.
Because it represents the texture of our bark.
Because it's bumpy grass.
Yeah.
Picture Shannon's hair on a hot, humid day.
Roast.
No, just making a comparison for you.
Parallel.
All right, now
Here, it's like that too.
It's a metaphor.
stay with me on this one. Branches,
Going
not
into-
as complicated as they look. Just have a nice little arch going one way, a little, not even really an arch. Have one going the other way.
Woo!
Tree
Now.
drawing at its
Oh no, hold on.
How does this pertain to tree drawing 101?
Don't worry.
At least
It
it's
says
gonna
nothing.
We'll get there.
there.
Now, finish off your branches. So just kind of go parallel with them, but give yourself little shoots every now and then. Just little lines, nothing too crazy.
Oh, that's
So
taking a
hard.
while.
You're drawing lines.
Why did I make my arches so big?
Why did I
Oh,
make
man.
my branches so large? What the heck?
Why is this
This is stressing me out.
Tree
This
drawing.
is more stressful than the AP test.
Yeah. Greta said it, not me.
We agree. You agree.
I did agree. I don't like it.
That's all you need.
It's really bad.
It's better have nothing to do with it.
Now, leaves are important.
But
Leaves.
I can't
do this.
Now, look, leaves. Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face. Frowny face, frowny face, frowny face, frowny. One more.
Wait,
Now,
you
Now the important part for the leaves is then just highlight all 5 leaves together and hit Command D a bunch of times, and then
I can't
put
do
your
that.
pencil down and just toss them around. You can bounce them.
I was just like top at the top.
My friend
I don't-
Me neither,
This
I
is
can
so.
add PTSD.
This is so stressful.
Although
I'm
they
just
didn't all
gonna
go
draw
together.
lines.
There you go.
I'm literally drawing circles.
Yep.
He's gonna label it probably, Greta. He has a system. I believe in
Or
him.
maybe he's just making us draw a tree.
When-
I'm pretty sure he's just.
I think he's just making us draw.
When I'm dead, this will continue to bring money in for my family. There's the Venn diagram. There's the Toolman model. There's flow charts. And then there's Mr. Kane's tree. That and YouTube videos about books.
I like it. And you're
You monetizing them right now?
Wait, why are the leaves going down in the bark?
Leaves fall sometimes,
Oh, so this is like a snapshot. This
just
is
like grades.
Yeah.
you so right.
Just like my AP environmental science. Right, don't make it.
Whoa!
Four circles.
All right. So what you then have to do, and I have leaves down at the bottom as well, which is okay. 2 books that we're going to use. We'll go with the most recent one, Slaughterhouse 5. Put that on one side of my trunk.
Not done.
I've been doing Cuckoo's Nest the rest of the day, so we'll go with Cuckoo's Nest. So these are the 2 books I'm going to compare and contrast. First thing I need to do once I figure out what my 2 books are going to be, oh look at all those beautiful leaves still down there, is I need to come up with an overarching argument that's going to relate to both books. Anybody have any arguments that would work? You want to have something that is, specific enough that it ties into the plot, but you don't want it to be too specific that you can't use different texts.
Antagonistic society.
You can use, and I have antagonistic society on there. I do think the word society is a little iffy sometimes. Would you say there's a certain part of society that causes more conflict than others for either of the 2?
Antagonistic expectations of society. There we go.
That just sounds like
The
a
jail
company
system.
stuff.
Sometimes you're
I
saying
don't
the word.
No, we're
What's
the expectations
what-
are
what's Chief's main? Who or what is Chief's main concern? Fear? Like what? He uses a different word though. Well, not just the nurse. She would be an extension of the combine that Robert and Megan mentioned. Remember, we said combine kind of has more of symbolic nature of like U.S. government, so far as the system, the man, the machine that's taking place. Slaughterhouse 5 is on the list as like anti-war book, and certainly that viewpoint is out there. One of the complaints that that Vonnegut would have, I guess, is about governments sending children's crusade, off to war, thinking that they would be fighting for a cause that might not necessarily be true. So both books would certainly have a critique of U.S. government. I think it's more specific, Sam, than like just simply saying antagonistic society, but it still gives you some leeway to do different things. Your argument is both books address this issue. Both books use almost like rhetorical analysis, similar literary concepts, devices, characteristics to address it, but they do that in two completely different ways. So, for example, the combine, from a literary technique standpoint, what would be a term that we could use to kind of classify the combine?
Symbol?
Could be symbol. It keeps coming up over and over again. You could also put it like in that motif category, and there's certainly some leeway, some flexibility with it. I'm just putting motif around the trunk. It still would apply to both books. Both books have a motif, or motifs. Cuckoo's Nest, combine. Fog, remember we talked about laughter. Sexuality, things like that. Slaughterhouse 5 motifs. So it goes. Would certainly be one right there. What would be? That's Invisible Man. Yeah,
I'm probably gonna stay away from that book.
might be a good idea. What other, from a literary device standpoint, similarities can you see? So like motifs. What else would be important in both books? What are you thinking?
The dog from Cuckoo's Nest and this Dresden. Yeah, from Cuckoo's Nest.
You started it with imagery.
The only thing with Dresden, and there you do get, it was like the moon, but there's not like quite as much imagery, I think, as people sometimes anticipate. However, you mentioned dog, which is animal, Slaughterhouse 5, horses, bird, who to eat. So you certainly could go maybe like animal imagery. Chief is dealing with what kind of issues?
Internal struggle.
Confidence.
What was yours?
Only confidence.
Yeah, it could be confidence, internal struggle. I mean, where is he located? He's in a mental hospital, so there's certainly some question of sanity, mental saneness, and things like that. Billy thinks he's in a zoo on Tralfamador. Some of you think he really is. Some of you think that's all mental. So there certainly could be some questions about insanity, saying that it's like a component to the argument within both books. One's in a mental hospital, another is in a zoo, so both of them would be trapped characters. Not that it has to be solely about Chief. McMurphy, what was the term we used to describe him? Since he's like maybe not the protagonist, but certainly he's a main hero, but he really kind of embodies the qualities you wouldn't associate with a hero. You could also argue that Billy Pilgrim is an anti-hero because he doesn't do anything heroic at all. Anytime there's a shock treatment with Chief, he has flashbacks. Slaughterhouse 5. It's basically one big flashback over and over and over again. Cuckoo's Nest, we talked a lot about illusions, Crown of Thorns, cross-shaped, EST. Remember Slaughterhouse 5, the Children's Crusade would be illusion. The reference to Lot would be illusion. So you're just initially coming up with ideas as to, okay, what's going on in both books. Doesn't mean the examples are going to be exactly the same, because they're not, and we don't need them to be, but we're just coming up with general ideas. What we've established at this point is down here, That is going to be the root of our argument.
Ha!
Ah! And then your thesis or your introduction is all of this stuff down here, at the base, supporting your whole argument. It's basically the trunk of what you're doing. Of the ideas that we have here, again, this is a hypothetical theoretical essay. It's not a real one that we're necessarily writing. Which devices do you think you could get the most mileage out of with both books, where you could explain motif or explain... Okay, motif,
Flashbacks,
Insanity
flashback.
and then...
The trust characters probably.
So, my introduction, my thesis is probably going to be like a compound thesis statement. It's probably not going to be just one. But your introduction would be along the lines of both novels, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, critique aspects of the U.S. government. They do this through the use of motif, insanity, and flashbacks within their novels. So what have you essentially established? How the two books are the same, similar. So that's the comparison. What you then do in your body paragraphs, what are we going to do? Our arguments are going to branch out. So, my first body paragraph, I'll write about motifs. Only in Slaughterhouse-Five. My next body paragraph, I'll do motifs only in Cuckoo's Nest. You're not writing about both books at the same time. That is going to be far too confusing. What's the similarity? They're both using motifs as part of their critique of U.S. government. What's the difference? So it goes. Combine. They're different. You know that. I know that. There's no reason to say they're different. It's clear that they are different. So that initial concern of how am I going to come up with 8 body paragraphs? Well, introduction. And then I go Slaughterhouse-Five. We said motif. Then I go Cuckoo's Nest. Also motif. I think we said flashback. So if I do one for Slaughterhouse-Five, obviously we'll do one for Cuckoo's Nest. Insanity was the other one we did. So Slaughterhouse-Five, Insanity, Cuckoo's Nest, Insanity. Now, the issue with the devices that you pick is you want to make sure it ties back into that critique of U.S. government. I'm not saying insanity is a bad one, but how does that kind of correlate with the critique of the U.S. government is something that you have to explain. And it certainly can be done. Your final paragraph, no surprise. Conclusion. You're doing word processing for your rough draft. So if it were me, after I do my introduction, or I might even wait on my introduction, I'm going to do my motif paragraph for Slaughterhouse-Five. My next paragraph that I would personally write would be, I'm doing flashbacks for Slaughterhouse-Five. To me, it's easier to write about one book at a time. So I could take care of all my Slaughterhouse-Five paragraphs because I only have to write about that book. Then I could come back and do my Cuckoo's Nest paragraphs, again, because I only have to write about that book. I might do a transition, statement that would kind of shift from one to the other, depending with it, but I'm only worried about Cuckoo's Nest and the Cuckoo's Nest paragraphs. Again, the structure allows for the similarities and the differences, the compare, the contrast. Both do the same argument, both use the same devices to get that argument across. The devices that they use and the way they go about it end up being a little bit different in the details. So this is closest to rhetorical analysis, but I did try to give you a little bit more leeway. You could, for example, like insanity is not a rhetorical device, but it's a component that's present in the book. I put setting. You don't really use setting as a literary technique, but the setting of the mental hospital, the setting of the zoo on Trafalgar could be important to the argument that you're trying to get across. So it can certainly go beyond diddles. If you want to go motif, symbolism, allusion, which would all be pretty classical rhetorical devices. You can do that, but I tried to give you some flexibility to go in some other directions with it as well. I know there's still detailed questions, but structurally, you at least see how it would be kind of piecing together. So it's kind of like just doing 2 essays and then Oreo cooking. Yeah, Oreo cooking turned into a verb.
So say I do like 2 books I've like written essays for already. Can I use the same? Like,
You've written essays for all the books that we've.
Yeah, I mean like essays. Can I use like the same like?
So if we did this, that's not going to be a thing because these were TWAs that we both did. If someone said that they were thinking about doing, I think he said 1984 and The Grapes of Wrath, so he has take-home essays for both of them. I'm going to give you the academic integrity statement thing to sign off on. About the whole plagiarism thing, obviously. One of the things on there that, plagiarism includes resubmitting prior assignments. So, no, I don't want you to copy and paste your second body paragraph from The Grapes of Wrath. I think there's 2 reasons why you won't. 1, you won't because it's plagiarizing. 2, you'll read it and go, this is bad. I really can do better than this. It was August. It was rough. Now, if you have some quotes from there that you think you're going to use, or you did a good job with the metaphors and you want to continue on with that, that's fine. Chances are argument's going to be a little bit different. Explanation's going to be better than it was before. Keep in mind, any essay you submitted, it's in the stockpile. I mean, if it's coming back, Alina, what are the other ones? Alania, there we go. Rao, Roa, Roe, Rui, whatever. 38% back to you, then I'd have a concern there. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. I don't think it's going to be a problem. The biggest problems that I've had with this assignment, it's not so much that someone goes back and plagiarizes themselves, but it's that Ellie goes back and finds Katie's essay or Michael's essay or something like that. What's her name on it? Don't do that.
I won't do that.
Okay,
I know
good.
what they write.
You never know. Not that you'll do that. I mean, let's be honest. Corner seat would be the. Although you're at a corner, I didn't mean that. Yeah, that other corner. And then within the body paragraph, since we're kind of talking about quotes and things like that, the expectation that I would have for each body paragraph would be that you have at least 1 quoted example, and then you have at least 1 additional cited example.
Do you not know what's called? Apparently not.
What did I do?
Not you,
Oh.
Megan.
Oh, the Harvard of Massachusetts over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Dodge that one. In the past, you've done 2 quoted examples, and then a third, you're doing 1 quoted in a second. If you want to do 2 quotes, that's perfectly fine. So you would be having in total for each book 6 specific examples coming from the book. At least 3 of those would be direct quotes, and then the other 3 could either be quotes, cited examples, mixture of them, does not matter. To be verbs, we would be doing what we've normally been doing throughout the course of the year. Intro, conclusion, no to be verbs, first, last sentence of body paragraphs.
When was the last time we did like a take-home essay before the college?
Flannery O'Connor, I think.
It was a while ago.
Yeah. No, we went TWA heavy those last few months. And honestly, part of the, not to cut you off, part of the revision that's going to be taking place in my mind between the 18th and the 21st, that it might be cleaning up the to be verbs a little bit. But the hope again is that by Thursday, obviously you know your books. The hope is that by tomorrow you've picked your books and you have an idea of your argument. And then Monday you can kind of come in, you've kind of brainstormed over the weekend. Monday you can come in and start getting the nice harmony of keys, doing your typing. Thursday you're going to come to class with it submitted through Google Classroom, and I'll show you how that works. It's a nice little system. Because what has actually happened is when you go onto Google Classroom, I already have it set up as an assignment that you have to complete with the due date, obviously, of Thursday. It'll look different when you because you'll just hit final exam rough draft, and that'll lead you into the assignment. It looks different on my end, but what I've done is I've given you a template and instructions. So part of your points is making sure it's in MLA format. I put it in MLA format for you. Don't mess that up. You have to have a works cited page. I started it for you. Don't mess that part up. I've given you like directions. Make sure you have at least one quoted example as well as an additional cited example. This means you should have at least 2 specific cited details for each body paragraph. Don't mess that up. And I have a checklist that I'll pass out for you so that you know exactly how it would work. But once you start typing in this document, it's shared with me, and then you just hit submit, and it gets sent off into our little repository. So your rough draft, you'll go through Google Classroom, and then your final copy, you'll just link it up with turnitin.com. You'll be good to go. So you don't need a physical paper copy of any of them. If you want one, because you work better that way, that's fine. Just trying to streamline the process as much as possible. That's a nice tree.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'll get that from you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is like your little rubric / checklist for your rough draft. So you see Thursday, May 18th, although it didn't photocopy very well. It does say May 18th. It's 40 points. I'm going to put it in as an essay assignment because you're writing an essay. So this, as I said, is your final grade for the semester. 40 points essay. It'll still cause some movement. So you should know going into Thursday that you got all the points. Is your essay typed Times New Roman 12-point double spaced? I hope so, because I set it up that way for you. Your paragraphs, you get 2 points for having your intro, 2 points for a conclusion, 3 points for your body paragraphs. If you don't have any body paragraphs, you're not losing 3 points, you're losing 18 points. Actually, you're losing more than that. You're actually losing 30, because if you don't have body paragraphs, you also can't have number 3 and 4, cited example for each paragraph and a quoted example for each paragraph. You still could get 10 points. Good luck with that one.
So,
Conversely, also, you can't just say, hey, I got all my 6 body paragraphs, I got all my points. Well, if you didn't quote or cite your stuff yet, no, you still don't. So you want to make sure you have all those, and then your works cited page takes that 36 up to 40. So you should know going into your submission that I have it. And you would be submitting by the beginning of class on Thursday. Once you submit on Google Classroom, it notifies me, it's good to go, I got a copy of it, and I have a copy of it while you're working on it. So you could be typing on Tuesday, ask a question, I can pull it up on my screen right away. I could also go on Wednesday, Sam, where's your essay? You don't have anything. Oh yeah, well don't forget to get that for tomorrow. Yeah, but I can still see you typing on Tuesday.
it's like he's gonna add you like looking at
He's
The other thing to keep in mind, the score for this is really, let's be honest, based on completion. It's not based on quality. So Greta, Zoe, Zui, Zua, Zei, whatever name we end up going with, Z, she could get a 40 out of 40, but that doesn't equal to necessarily 100%, come the final exam, because that's where the quality aspect starts to come in. I am not worried, again, I think I already said this, but I'm not worried about the 2B for your rough draft. You're not losing points on that one. That would be something that you understand just needs to kind of be polished up for a final.
Intro, conclusion,
For the 2, right, so the whole intro, the whole conclusion, first 5 sentences of the body paragraph.
Are we like going to your books and stuff?
Yes. No, you're going to do this all from memory. So tomorrow, anyone not planning on writing one now?
Oh, I'm not.
Okay, if you know you're not going to be here, you know what books, we can sign them out at,
How to do my hair.
right before you leave. If you still want to think about it, you can wait till Monday, that's fine. Yes, you can sign out your book. So if you didn't turn in Slaughterhouse 5 yet and you plan on using it, keep the book. Don't turn it in and then sign it right back out. But of all the books, having enough copies shouldn't be an issue. The only thing that would be semi-problematic would be if every single person used the Grapes of Wrath. That would make it difficult for summer reading for the kids to start signing out next year, the little ankle biters. I highly doubt that all of you are going to be using the Grapes of Wrath. So that would be the only one that have to be kind of careful about. But Megan, you can sign out both books. Also tomorrow, if I don't do it, please remind me. I want you to have your writing folders. They're yours, so take them. You have essays in there, so like even if you did do Slaughterhouse 5 and Cuckoo's Nest, you can still have TWAs to kind of take a look at. Remind yourself about the ideas that you have on there. You have an online repository, essentially, of all the essays that you have written. You can certainly go back and use those. We've got classroom notes online, through Classroom that you can take a look at. All that stuff, certainly you're able to utilize. Your writing folders, don't throw them away, because it is a trend with some college applications that they want a sample of work, like with feedback. So you can print stuff out from, turn it in for that, but also TWAs you might want. Or maybe not, in Greta's case with the faces that she's making. So the final, it's not something that you haven't done before, and it's a pretty structured approach, as it comes to setting it up. You don't have to worry about writing about 4 characters, 2 books all at one time. The structured approach takes care of this is the similarity, this is the difference. We'll say the bell ring.